So we will go ahead and get started. I'll call the meeting to order with the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we'll start with roll call. Guy here, Derek here, Ken here, Nate here, and Jeff is here. We have no public comment, and so we'll start with student council.
So this month we've been doing the cereal box drive that I talked about, so all the classes have been collecting them. And then on Friday, all the student council members are assigned to a grade or a class. They're gonna be counting them all up. And then next week, end up being Thursday or Friday, so as Wednesday, we'll be setting up the whole thing and making it topple over.
Who needs the setup?
I think, so there's student council and then middle school has their student counselor, it's called something different, but.
Principal's hat.
Yeah, that's it. So I think they'll be setting up, maybe everyone, I'm not sure yet, I think, but it might be on like that Thursday or Friday when we don't have school, so then it would just be whoever would come in.
Okay.
And then we'll start planning for the trash pickup, that's in April next month. That's all I've got.
Awesome. Thank you. And what's on for Celebrate Fall River?
All right, tonight we have kindergarten again. This is Robin, and this is Bird. With the upcoming, some of you may have heard about the upcoming Act 20. I've talked about it here a couple of times. We have been looking at resources that can help bolster us, things we've already needed anyway. Sort of some resources and things that we've been able to acquire this school year and towards the end of the last school year. That they're here presented on. I think that both of them have done a wonderful job of instructing the kids around what we're about to talk about and the resources that we got. I also think they've helped advocate it further up to other staff members who have also then come to me and said, hey, we would like this too. And then we're able to feed that up the chain. So that's been great. So good job to both of them.
Thanks.
Thank you for being here also, guys.
Absolutely. Speaking of Act 20. You're good. This is just a snip directly from the DPI website. It's kind of small, so click it one more time. These are the components they're saying that students should be taught in for reading, should be taught for reading. And they're trying to get away from whole language reading, and they're trying to get away from Orton Gillingham. They're centering on what's called the science of reading. I've been here before, we've kind of talked about this, that I believe we should we shouldn't put all of our eggs in one basket. So I agree, this is a good base for starting to teach reading. It's very good. And in fact, when my youngest, who's now 22, was in reading instruction, I came in for a conference and she showed me this hand and she said, okay, well, first they look at the pictures and then they look at this and then and I went, wait. Where do they sound the words out? She's like, well, that's really not something we do. And I said, well, why wouldn't we, right? So at that time, this was completely foreign to me because I was in school learning to read in 1970. And but anyway, phonics is what I was taught, and so I wasn't sure. Now, after getting a master's in literacy, there are places for that. There are places for that. And so we don't want to ever ban or say we shouldn't do anything of, different than this, because each student is different. So we need to teach to the student. With that in mind, speaking of phonological awareness, phonemic awareness, and phonics, that is the base. That's where we start these littlest readers.
So talking about phonological awareness and phonemic awareness, we kind of hear them sometimes used interchangeably, so we wanted to define them for you guys. Phonological awareness, it's a big umbrella is how we think of it. That's the easiest way. All these things apply to phonological awareness. It's word awareness. Can I hear different pieces of that word? Phonemic awareness, syllable awareness. Can I clap out? How many syllables does my name have? Rhyme awareness. Can I rhyme with cat? Can I come up with other rhymes? Can I listen to two words and know that, yep, those two words rhyme, or thumbs down, no, those words don't rhyme? First sound awareness and alliteration awareness. So those are all things that we currently teach and assess as well in our classroom. And we'll kind of get into it a little bit more, but we kind of went with the Haggerty system. So it's a systematic thing. It takes like, I don't know, I use 10 minutes, maybe a day,
You could do anywhere from 2 to 20 minutes, depending on how you.
how we shake it out.
Yep.
But it covers pretty much all of this and then some on top of it.
And so this, this is used K through 2, actually pre-K, so 4K, kindergarten, first grade and second grade. The research and evidence shows that beyond second grade, you're not getting as much bang for your buck. But there are districts who are trying to catch up because they weren't teaching it. And so they're teaching it in 3rd and 4th grade to catch up. We've been teaching it for sure for 4 years because it started off, actually longer than that. Started off with literacy links, which is another phonological awareness. You could say curriculum, but a tool is a better word probably, where we're teaching the letter names and the letter sounds through song and different things in the 4K and 5K classroom.
So then getting into phonics, we have phonemic awareness, which is everything you hear. So we're not looking at letters, anything like that. If I see an ant, and I say, ooh, there's an ant. Ooh, what does ant start with? What do I hear? And then phonics is when you start actually putting the print with, like I hear a, I know that's the word a, and it starts with writing. Heather had the best analogy because we were trying to like, how do we explain this? She said, phonemic awareness is what happens in the dark. This happens in the light. You see it, you don't have to see it to do it. So why is phonological awareness important? This came right from the Haggerty's, the curriculum that we're using's website. It is, phonological awareness is a strong predictor of reading success. It is especially important at the very earliest stages of reading development. It is the foundation for reading, which is kind of what we said, those first 3. And phonological awareness is crucial for learning to read any alphabetic writing system. So whether it's Spanish, German, anything that would have any type of letters. If we're taking Spanish, which we've taken some, if we don't know the letters and the sounds that they make in the Spanish alphabet, we can't read it. So kind of having both, whether it's English, Spanish, or another language.
So if you remember when we started, we had this slide up directly from DPI. Well, I made the slide, but I copied the words from DPI. And we talked about phonological awareness, phonemic awareness, phonics, which is what Haggerty says that it's doing. But then if you look, there's still background knowledge, oral language development, vocabulary instruction, writing instruction, comprehension, reading fluency. Well, give it a click. That is the hidden gem of the Haggerty curriculum. There is so much vocabulary in here. So as we're working on these words and sounding them out and finding the syllables and going through all of that, there is a ton of vocabulary. Respectful, tradition, party, construction, words that may not come up in their reading books or small reading books and things like that are coming up in here, and we're manipulating these words and we'll say, you know what that means? We get vocabulary lessons. And that brings in the background knowledge in obviously oral language development. So they had said, DPI says, right, phonological awareness, phonics is the base for reading. But it can be said that background knowledge is just as important. Without background knowledge, so we were given a paragraph. I read the paragraph. I could read every single word in that paragraph. It was foreign to me. I'm like, well, I can read every word. I have no problem reading the words. What does this mean? Well, it's a paragraph about cricket. I don't play cricket. I had no background knowledge in cricket. It was like, I didn't have any clue what I was reading. If it had been baseball, softball, basketball, football, I'd have been right on, but I don't play cricket. So without background knowledge, I can read every single word there is, but I can't understand. So background knowledge is very important. Vocabulary is extremely important for a reader, and we're hitting all of that with this one book.
The example that I use in my classroom is there's lots of words that come up and we create environments where we allow our children to ask questions, because we figured that they should at least have a safe place to ask. So we've had words like gap. And now it's to the point where like they're walking down their line, they're like, and they'll be like, hey, Susie, you're leaving a gap. Because there's this big space and they'll know they'll get lost if it's passing grade with middle school and high school. And they can use the word, which is a sign that they understand the word because they can use it in context. So they build that background knowledge and they build that oral development. The other one was roam. We had roam and they're like, well, what does roam mean? And I'm like, well, roam means like you walk around or you, like usually animals roam. And one kid shot his hand up because he was gone the first week of school because he was out west watching buffalo roam around on the grasslands. So he could share his background knowledge experience that other people didn't have. And then the classic thing that comes out is, can you find us a picture? And so like we have looked up roam, so we look at buffalo roaming. Pug was a new one this week. And they're like, well, what's a pug? I'm like, well, it's a type of dog. Well, what do you mean it's a type of dog? And then we brought it up and they're like, that's Emmy's dog in Mrs. Robbins's class. So now they could draw the connections to this is what this word means. It went as far as I have one student in my room who has an aide and comes in from the IDS room. And one of his things to do when he's really excited is he'll grab his teacher's hand and walk around the room. And so one of the kids said, because they keep reintroducing the word, it's never one and done. So they'll do it where I'm finding the beginning sound. The next day, I'll be segmenting or breaking the word apart. The next day, it'll be in take the beginning sound away and say what is left. So they keep hearing the same words because the more exposure, the more they can cement it into their mind and into their background knowledge of words and vocabulary. And so the one kid goes, oh, roam, we talked about that. I'm like, yeah, what did we say it meant? They meant it's walking around. It's like when this kid grabs his teacher's hand and roams around our classroom during play choice time. That's literally what he does sometimes when he gets super excited. He'll grab his aide's hand and he roams my classroom, but they're able to take that vocabulary word that we learned through our simple Haggerty discussion and cement it into their own environment and their own life and world. And that allows them to create this background knowledge and the oral development that they're using those words now with each other. And then they take them home and I get parents who say, how do they know this word? And we go, well, we had a conversation and we've been practicing it.
Or your principal comes in, it covers your classroom and they're using words.
Perimeter.
I was like, ooh, word kid.
Yep. So here's all the different ways that we use instruction, reading instruction in 5K, which are hitting all those big things we already see coming out with the new legislation. Haggerty, that's the explicit phonemic awareness lessons. Literacy Links is the song that teaches all the alphabet letters, but the sound that goes with it with hand signals. Our assessments, we do iReady assessments, which assess all these, so we can look at kids. We just finished our second one. We can look at who grew, who didn't grow. And then we can also look at, okay, I have 2 kids that are missing final sounds. How many do you have? And then when we set up our guided reading groups or our WIN groups, we target those kids. Or we have X number of kids that don't know this letter. We need to wrap up letters or anything like that. So it kind of gives us that feedback on how we can individually meet those kids' needs and what they need at this time. Our individual assessments, we run different assessments through kindergarten that do all that. They do, can you hear the first sound? Can you tell me, can you break the word into all of its parts or segment it? Can you blend this word? So we kind of test through that they're getting all those foundational skills so that then when they move on to the next grade and the next grade, they're building upon the foundation we already gave them. Our guided reading groups is a lot of decoding. That's where we put in kind of the information for them. So we might have groups of higher level or lower level students, and we're working with them. We might revisit Haggerty that day with our lower level students because we know they don't quite have it. We might take a piece out of those kids who are missing final sound, and we're going to revisit that activity to solidify that they're getting what they need out of that. iReady lessons, they'll individualize it. Our classroom interventions and weight gains, that's what we talked about, where we'll use those assessments to decide how to manipulate our weight groups every so many weeks so that we can get students what they need to make sure their foundation is solid. Our read alouds, which I included a picture, we often do different read alouds in kindergarten, whether it's like the simple picture books they have at home. Heather got us into a couple, like last year, I think, Magic Treehouse series. PPO actually bought me a set now, so we both have one. And literally, like, we finish a Magic Treehouse book, and the next day they're like, we're starting one, right? And we didn't Monday because it was President's Day, and we read on Abraham Lincoln and George Washington, and they were like disappointed I didn't start the next Jack and Annie book. Because that's what they call them. But then when they went to the library, I said, they have those books up here. So like every kid's like, look at mine, I've got this one, I'm gonna take it home. And talking about vocabulary, these books are phenomenal. Like they can't read them, but they take them home and have someone read it to them. And they're talking about polar bears past bedtime, ghost town at sundown, the hour of the Olympics. And it's all historical fiction, but it grips them. We just finished the Amazon book, so it's talking about the Amazon and the canopy layers. And so we're having classroom discussions, and can we see a picture of what the layers of the rainforest look like? Absolutely, I can't take you there, let's bring it up. So we're having those vocabulary and background knowledge building for them. And then you'll see in our writing, which we brought some examples, the decoding that we're doing throughout different parts of this, especially in our guided reading groups, we're seeing it show up in our writing. Let you learn that.
So they're writing, so they take what they know, they take those sounds and those letters that they've learned and they start putting them together, and you have to have a degree to be able to read this, but we will help you. So they start off, we have environmental print, probably you need to have environmental print, so I have a poster with this, they took this off of the October poster, obviously, owl, bat, so they took words they know, there is it's a pattern. There is an owl, there is a bat, there is a cat, and they just follow that pattern. Over there, again, words they know, and that's how the writing usually starts. With just words they know and they keep repeating them. And then it starts to get a little bit more, it gets a little bit more out of it. Snowflake, Emerson, Snowman, Sled, again, that's from the posters, they're just copying, there's a picture in the word. This was during Martin Luther King Jr. week. I love the world. I love the people. I want peace and I love my mom. And how sweet is that?
And you can see as they're doing it, we're like, we teach sight words, but for here, this gives us feedback. There's my. If you sound out my to a kid that doesn't know why has 4 sounds, that's how they write it. So we're like, yep, they got it. They can hear that ND sound.
And that's really what we're looking for in kindergarten. Can you hear the sound parts? And they'll learn how to spell it as they go up in grades. This was they're starting to list in order first. So this is to get ready to go outside. First, you need your coat. Then first, but also snow pants. Next, your boots. Next, your hat. Then your gloves, and then your scarf. And I look at this and I can say, okay, he's missing end sounds in his boots. He's missing blends, gloves, scarf. So when you see their writing, you can know where you're gonna pinpoint their individual lessons for learning.
This one, we read the book, If You Give a Mouse a Cookie, and so they could give a mouse a cookie or anything. She came up with, if you give a flamingo, once again, she's missing blend. But for the most part, she's got flamingo. A cookie, that's how she phonetically sounded it out. Then she will want, which to a kindergartner, that's want, a party. So you can see how then they're taking everything that we're teaching them and they're starting to put it into practice through the writing.
Oh,
This
yeah.
is your water
that's
one.
amazing. So. What is in the water? Perhaps a starfish. Perhaps a starfish, yes, word choice, awesome. And then this says stump stank. And we teach ing says ing, says ing, so they sting. See that? So, don't you get?
This is one of the free writing days, so my friend came up with, my ninja is fighting, there's the ing, a villain. My ninja fights with swords. And how he sounded it out to get all the parts that he could hear. We'll talk a lot with Haggerty. It's giving us vocabulary too as teachers to use with them. So when they get stuck and they're like, I don't know how to spell this word. We have multiple strategies that we teach them using Haggerty and some of the other curriculum things that we do. We'll say, hey, say the word, segment it. And they know segment means break apart. So they'll go, okay, I want to do swords, or if they can get that far. If they only get a couple, it's like, okay, now I know what I need to work. He needs to work medial vowels. We'll do, Haggerty has us do roller coaster words. So if I have cat, at, what's my middle sound? I have to make sure I hit that when I write. So things like that, that they're giving us, so we can give those strategies. So when they get stuck, we're like, hey, use your strategies, use your tools. We've taught you several. And they'll go, oh yeah, and they'll pick their favorite one, and then they're able to actually put it in.
So in other words, we don't nap in kindergarten anymore.
It's still winter.
One of the things I think is important is with Act 20, Derek was the first person who mentioned that to me, was the first person I heard the term Act 20. I've been so excited ever since. And as I was reading the act itself and then researching it more, I'm going, we're doing this. This isn't, all of this isn't brand new to us. Several years ago, now, I think 3 at least, we started talking about our data and going vocab. Vocab led to phonological awareness. Kendra and you guys talked, Kendra
Yeah.
came to me with the Hagerty.
Actually,
purchased the
vocabulary
Hagerty.
came up because you guys were talking vocabulary, and I said, you know what?
We got
In
it.
Beaver Dam,
Yep.
we had this resource
Yeah.
called Haggerty, and it is loaded with vocabulary, so we came in the back door
Yeah.
to phonics, but yeah,
And
it was perfect.
then Kendra came to me, we purchased a couple.
We literally had kids running this between our rooms in the morning. So she, like, if I got to it first, we had one book the first year. And so I get it, we'd be done. I'd be like, okay, who gets to run into Mrs. Robbins today? And literally, okay, go pass it on so that she could run her vocab or her phonics Hagerty lesson.
Yeah, and they subbed that one day and I was doing the same thing. I'm like, what are we doing? We need to buy more. So we bought more. They're all using it now. K through 2, special ed is using it also, with our kindergarten through second graders, and our kids are also using the upper level. So I think it is a great resource. This is one of many, but I think we're on the right track already with the whole Act 20 thing. And I think we're already kind of ahead of that curve. So thank you. I think it's that and hiring great people and that we're able to do that. So thank you.
Thank you for the update.
Something that I noticed when Heather just said, they brought up Beaver Dam, I think about in the last 4 years now, the elementary teachers we hired, almost everyone taught somewhere else and brought their experiences and ideas from other districts to us. Like these two, both 3rd grade teachers, the new 2nd grade teacher, the new 1st grade teacher. All those teachers taught somewhere else. We weren't their first teaching job. They taught somewhere and brought those experiences and knowledges and ideas with them. So it's kind of nice to blend that together.
Yeah, they're growing our curriculum and they're just growing a professional atmosphere, which I'm gonna talk about in my principal report too, which I think we can.
Would you like questions down then or during your principal's report? Wait and see.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So just wondering, I think you had mentioned earlier this year you were looking at possibly some then universal curricular tools. Beyond that, is there, have you made progress with that or still kind of waiting to see what
Yeah,
the stake is?
so right now, Dennis and I spoke, we wanted to see kind of universal. Specifically regular ed, we're looking, like, as we look at that. We look at that, we wanna see what they're gonna approve, they haven't approved that, it's sitting on, I believe it's sitting in committee still, or in the joint finance committee, and then they're gonna come out very soon if they haven't, maybe this week of what the first batch of approved, so we can see what percentage, and if that's something we want. Specifically in special ed, yes, I've decided we're moving forward, we're not gonna wait for them in special ed. So I have 2 quotes now, one for kindergarten through 1st grade special ed literacy, and then also an intervention for 6 through 12, because we don't want the same intervention all the way through, because you'll get sick of it. So I got the final quote today for 6 through 12, and I'll be reviewing that and bringing it to Mr. Burr, so we can look at. And then I'll get it to Jenny too, so we can look at, okay, well, how do we attack it, which comes first? Because I don't think we'll be able to do both of them in one budget cycle.
And then I don't know if this is a question for anyone. Have you played around with any of the AI tools,
Yes.
like Magic School with like decodable text and pieces? There's some pretty cool stuff you can do with that science reading and
We had
creating.
professional development the last, I think, 2 or 3 professional developments or staff meetings where either A, we were presented with stuff and like, hey, this is how it could help. Or B, like, here's a bunch of tools, we're gonna give you time, sit down, collaborate together and play with it. Whether like the upper levels went to, oh, we could take text and grade, like, their reading level it out. For us, we kind of went through, okay, we do a lot of social and emotional learning. How can we use AI to help kindergartners learn how to get along with each other? So like it came out and it was like, hey, you should do, like it gave us different ideas to like supplement what we're already doing in our classrooms.
We're also using AI to help with building our ladders for our curriculum so that we are, because then we'll be able to work cross-curricular and taking everything, first building those out. And I was in your room, you guys were kind of working through that. I know others were too utilizing that way also.
And we'll update, we're gonna do still, because we talked about AI at the beginning of the school year, we had update planned, for you, we were waiting to get through our professional development on Friday for that. But one of the cool things that we have done with our ladders is, it took a project that we were thinking timeline of like 3 to 5 years, and now we're thinking like 1 to 3 years tops. Because yes, AI can generate those learning ladders, but we still have to, have our eyes on them, making sure, like, is it actually what we wanted to say and want it to look like? Is it following the alignment of the learning?
It's growing quickly, even on EPs, there's people using AI, and I'm sure you dabble in that amazing tool. Yes, you still gotta read it, you gotta prove that, means that saying what you wanna say. I use it in my weekly bulletin, you use it in some of your communication, I guess, it's there's so many possibilities that we're just growing.
Make this email less snarky.
All my artificial intelligence, so.
More spicy.
Good question.
Any other questions? Thank you for the update. All right, so in the packet, we had the minutes from the last month, January 24th, regular school board meeting. Can I get a motion to approve?
I'd like a motion to approve the school board minutes for January 24th of 2024.
And do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, so we have a motion by Nate, seconded by Guy. I think that works. All those in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
All those opposed. All right, we'll receive our treasurer's report.
On the main sheet you get, the one thing I've noticed that this month is that for Fund 10 and 27, we are ahead in revenues by percentage and by dollar amounts that we were at this time last year. And the percentage on expenditures for Fund 10 is almost exactly the same percent, but expenditures for Fund 27 are down a little bit, so that kind of bodes well that we're fairly on track for the year. Revenues are up a little bit, and expenditures are down a little bit, so it's about as positive as I could hope for right now.
And remind me why 138 is 100%?
100%. That's the tax revenue came in.
Okay.
So we recorded the tax revenue, so it's all in, and then the payment is in March, I think late March.
Okay.
And the same thing will happen then when we get to Fund 39, when it gets closer for that to be due.
All right, any questions on the treasurer's report? And I will take a motion to approve or to accept.
I make a motion to approve the treasurer's report.
I'll second that.
I have a motion by Derek, seconded by Ken. All those in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, and let's see if I can do better this month. We have the payroll and vouchers, so I will make a motion to accept vouchers 425-637 through 425-777 and 2023-00239 through 2023-00347. The amount of $330,000, $606.78. Do I have a second?
I will second that.
Motion by Jeff, seconded by Nate. All those in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
All those opposed. All right, we will move on to gifts and donations.
All right. So you have to bear with me. We have quite a long list, from the father-daughter dance. I do want to read those aloud, just so anybody that watches the video can hear, who those companies were. First donation was from the Fall River Pirate Foundation to repair our baseball field tile. And then onto the father-daughter dance donations. It was Adams Columbia Electric Cooperative, Becky Lashy, Cardinal Embroidery, Color X Salon, Columbus Family Dental, Crumble Cookie, Culver's, Day One Pizza, Fall River Foundry, Dana and Kyle Elke, from Jersey Mike's, Caravan Trailers, Keystone Realty, Leroy Meats, Matthew G, the cheesecake guy, as we'll call him. Mickelson Feed, Noodles and Company, Elke Construction, Pizza Ranch, Posh Nail Studio, Kwame Insurance, Real Broker LLC, the Robert Woodall Youth Fund, Shem Bowling, Schmidt Custom Floors, Secret Garden Floral, SNS Electric, Starbucks, Teas Salon, Subway, Tequilas, Texas Roadhouse, Tramberg Repair, and Troy Bones. So the cool thing about that list was there's a lot of people within our community, but also outside as well. There's some Prairie and Beaver Dam and just a lot of our outside communities supporting our school as well. So we did have some more FFA, Skills USA, and robotics donations come in from Adams Columbia Electric Roundup Grant. And then Mr. Keller received from the sponsors for the pep band trailer. So that was F&M Union Bank, Fall River Booster Club, the Fall River Foundry, EK Machine, Julie's Java House, Forever Homes Real Estate, and also an anonymous donor. And then we had PPO give a donation for the new wildlife class, which I believe is it Mr. Christian or Mr. Seichter that's running it? Mr. Christian. So something to get that class started as well.
I think the pep band trailer they pick up next week. So they can take it down to state wrestling when they're the house band for the state wrestling tournament next Saturday. Not this week, but the following.
For team state.
Team state. Yeah.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, so really just looking forward to March. Things get quieter.
No, you're not.
It won't get quieter.
We're gonna keep winning. That's an impressive list. The daddy-daughter dance, or his father-daughter dance was awesome. I got to rock a tiara, so. Yeah, it's great to see a list like that. All right, we will move on to Building and Grounds Committee report.
You just want to say anything about what we did?
Go ahead. I guess at the Building and Grounds Committee, we went over possible fixes, improvements to the school. The pool area is a topic of conversation. Replacing some of the clocks, or replacing all the clocks around the school, potentially to digital. The one that I think's relatively big is software, as far as spyware and firewall protection against people from all around the world that want to try to hack in and break our bank and hold us hostage. The technical education area has some things as far as that they would like to have, building trade tools, job trailers, saw shop, dust collector and venting upgrades. Another big one is the HVAC system. That's obviously pretty important also. So there's a list of stuff here that totals, well over, not well over, but around $1 million. And it's things that are, important to keep us ahead of the curve and keep us going in the right direction. So it's a great meeting. There's a lot of great things here. And it's, some heavy lifting stuff that's gonna take a little bit of time, but certainly things that we want to get done. One thing that we talked about, this $1 million, $1.1 million looks like a really big number. I had asked Dennis, and Dennis and I and Ken had talked about potentially what the numbers look like around COVID when we started upgrading. We got a new bus, we got a new dishwasher. The other things on here, pool repairs, Chromebooks. We spent a lot of money that people don't get a chance to see, or maybe they see it, but they don't, they don't really see it and what that costs or what that all entails. So to be able to compare the number in 2024 to 1.1 million compared to just after COVID, or in the past 4 years, I guess you could say, as $750,000. Well, that number at $1 million doesn't look nearly as scary when you can look at parking lot lights, seal coating blacktop, flooring, down in the elementary to keep up with what the high school had. It's all relative, and it makes the story a lot easier to tell when you see that we spent $750,000 and we are gonna have to spend some more money. One of the other things on this list that I didn't mention was another bus, potentially. So again, all really good things, and I think we're gonna have time as a group with administration to sit down and really try to put a importance level together, or what's the most important, what's the need the quickest, and what's the least of our needs. I think it's fair to say that, there's all of these are important to someone, and I think the more that we can get done sooner, the better it makes, the better it is for everyone. Something as simple as cabinets, not every classroom has enough cabinets for storage and for things like that, so, cabinets seem like a pretty small deal. But to somebody in the school, a teacher somewhere around here, they really want their cabinets, so I think it's, there we go. So I think it's all really good stuff, and it's time to start doing some heavy lifting.
No, I noticed, roofing wasn't on here, is that?
Brian thinks that our roofing is actually in good shape at this time. Over the period of, say, we go to referendum, it would go past that before we would need some.
Okay.
He's working on a map for me that is like an aerial view that says when this roof is put on, when that roof is put on, so each part of the building, you can identify it. Anyone else can look at it and say, that's a 10-year-old roof, that's a 12-year-old roof. So we have an idea when they really are gonna need to be replaced. He feels they're good right now. The pool roof has some cracks in it, but he believes it's still under warranty, so he thinks that that's gonna be taken up with warranty work. He's got some concerns for the company and Brian's really good at this. We're fortunate to have him to hold their feet to the fire and make sure that does what it's supposed to do for the length of time it's under warranty. So,
And I think it's important. The one thing that we didn't talk about, and I thought about before coming here, we self-perform all of our snow plowing,
yep.
which is a really big deal. That doesn't, that's not something that people, it's things that people see, Brian Anderson's out there plowing the snow, but really what that is as far as the cost savings. With that snowfall that we had, that was a foot or 13 or 14 inches, that's that's potentially, it's in the tens of thousands of dollars. If we have a snowplow company that's moving all that snow, getting rid of that snow, we self-perform all of our own lawn mowing. That's a big deal. We have upgrades to the equipment that cost us money, but that's just one-time cost. And we're able to, self-perform a lot of our own stuff. And Brian, he's never gonna say this, but he saves the district hundreds of, not in the thousands of dollars a month with his, skill of being able to fix things and take care of things and, really save us from calling an electrician, save us from calling the HVAC guy, save us from calling the lawn mowing guy, save us from calling the snowplow guy. There's just so many things there that you don't see where, like Dennis just said, he's,
You hear what he told me today? When we finished the fields, we wanted to get it off to a good start, so we got the company to fertilize and to take care of it.
Yeah.
He says, Dennis, I can get my fertilizer application license and I can buy it in bulk from like Mickelson's, and he's got something from his farm that he says, I think we could cut that cost in half.
Yeah.
Because he thinks he wants to do that now.
Yeah.
So $10,000-15,000 he'd like to save us by him going to get that license. So,
it was the best building and grounds meeting I've had since I've been on the school board.
really,
I think there's a lot of good stuff here, and I think it needs to be, it needs to be taken seriously. It's kind of a legacy that we leave behind. There's a lot of different ways we have some of the best teachers in the area. And a lot of it is the time and money that we put into the school. And if you want to stay ahead of everyone else, you have to spend money. And it's,
you've all gone to ball games or events at other schools, and sometimes you go in school and go, ugh.
yeah,
I
right.
think your daughter had that experience for forensics, was it, or solo ensemble? Solo ensemble.
Yeah.
She came back and said, what did she say about our school?
She said, I just love how bright and open it is, and the school that we were in is just very dark hallways, and it's just very narrow, very low ceiling, and she just mentioned how much she likes the feel of our school and how inviting it is.
Yeah.
I gave a tour to a new substitute teacher this week. first words walking out of the office, and they're always, man, it's so clean. So the first thing I was like, wow, then we got down here and he's like, you're clapping, what are you piping into these classrooms? They're so on task and quiet and engaged. I was like, great teachers, you know, that's, you know, but I was like, a lot of compliments, so that I thought that was nice to hear also.
Well, and
Not many-
word's getting out, because since Saturday, like, I've had a teacher reach out to me asking if we might have openings. Ryan had a teacher or a person reach out to him regarding a friend to see if we had any openings, like, I think people wanna come.
Right now, we don't have any projected
We have
openings.
nothing as of this time.
And the one I heard was a former employee who still stayed in contact with me, and there's nothing but great things to say about this. So, trying to help us, so.
Trying to build a reputation.
You built it, they will come.
Well,
If you build it, they will come.
If you build it, they will come.
Yeah.
And they have come.
They have come, I think, we talked a little bit about that. The referendum didn't go great. It finished great. And, you know, there's something to be said, that you have athletic complexes, you have softball fields. You did a bunch of stuff that really lets people know that the community cares and that the district cares, and it's all, I mean, it's all positive stuff. I mean, when we were in COVID, how many people went up to the football field that were coming from Stoughton or from some prairie? No, seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I mean, that kept us, that kept our books balanced. I mean, if we didn't have that, we were playing down at the park, guess what?
Yeah.
They're not coming. They're just not coming. So. Sorry, Jeff.
Oh, no, all good, no, I appreciate the list, it's a good list, it's a good mix of big and little and, you know, hardware and tech, and I do like the tech stuff in there, so, it'll be very helpful as we start talking about kind of the financial forecast, so I appreciate that. All right, we will move on to new business, I believe we were provided some state testing results.
Yeah, you got a sheet with some black and red on it that is an update. We've gotten something like this the last couple of years to kind of explain. You saw data like this for our state report cards. This is kind of one of those major factors that goes into those state report cards. It's kind of basically kind of like a 1-day snapshot when kids take these tests, but it's still meaningful, and all the other districts are doing the exact same thing. We kind of have iReady and iExcel data that we look at multiple times in a year locally. That gives us even a better idea, but this is part of why, if you start with the elementary part, the elementary took a rise, they exceeded expectations, but the number went up this year. And with all those black numbers, you can see why it went up even farther. Middle school, high school, there's a lot of black, but there's a few pockets of red. And those are probably why the middle school, high school stayed in the same ranking, but the number dropped a little bit. They didn't drop out of exceeding expectations, but they were a little lower. So these numbers are also supposed to be percent of advanced and proficient kids, and you see the state averages in the second column next to us. And then I use these local districts, same ones I've used in the past, kind of just compare how we've done to the state, but then also how we've done compared to other districts. So 3rd grade, English language arts and math, and the same thing in 4th grade, they do those, but they also do science and social studies. 5th, 6th, and 7th grade, just English language arts and math. And then 8th grade, they add the science and social studies again. And then when you get the pre-ACT and the ACT, there's a little bit more involved. There's more testing that's going on there. And, you know, you look at the 9th and 10th graders last year were just phenomenal. The juniors who are now seniors, their average composite score for the ACT was below state average, but it wasn't a lot below, just 5/10. And you compare that to the districts to the right, there were a couple higher, but the other 3 were lower than us. So it's kind of nice to just see how we did compare to the state, but then also how we're doing to the people around us. When you get under that, there's a line that says percent advanced and proficient. So on average, 47% of our students on all the tests combined were advanced and proficient, where the state average, 40% of all kids are advanced or proficient. And you see the numbers for the other schools. The one closest to us was Columbus and Rio, 41% of their students overall. Then that's all the tests. Then if you look at the 29 tests, we scored above the state average on 76% of the tests. Closest to us in the local areas, Columbus, where they scored 62% of the tests above state average. Now, when I mentioned all the red, Jennifer, would you like to just say something about
Yeah.
what you love data, so.
So I do, I just told Kendra last week or this week, I said, part of me is a little jealous of your job because I love diving into data because. As you're well aware, I'm not one to put my head in the sand and ignore something that's in my face. I like to figure out the why and then what I can do to try to rectify it. So as soon as Dennis gave me this handout 2 weeks ago, I started getting to work. I met with our principals cabinet, talked with them about like what they felt at the middle school was going on and why, what was going on. So they gave me some feedback as to some things that they thought that we could do differently as a building. But as I really dove into, Amy put together, Miss Liebenthal put together, a spreadsheet of each of the grades, math, ELA, how they did in the year prior, and then the current year. So then I pulled all of that down to look at the number of students who dropped, how many moved out, how many students did we bring up, just kind of really dove into that. And a few of the things that jumped out at me is one, most of you are numbers people, we have a small population. So any movements, whether it was a student whose score dropped from proficient or advanced into basic, or we had students who didn't test because they were on vacation, or they opted out from one year to the next from proficient or advanced. And then we also had several students move out of our district who were originally the year before proficient or advanced. So even with our small numbers of, our class sizes of 26, 40, when we have a few kids that drop down or move out that were there, it affects our percentage greatly. One of the other things that I reflected on is the fact that at our middle school, we had 4 brand new staff members in our middle school last year. Not only were they figuring out the curriculum, learning the kids, figuring out our system. So I think it'd be hard for us to not make mention of that I do think that with everything we've been doing and the learning and the professional development that's been happening, I think we've got a strong future ahead of us with that, but that did hurt us a little bit, having that staff turnover. Some of the positives are we do have our new math curriculum to streamline our instruction at the middle school. I think that's going to be extremely beneficial. We've done data dives to identify the gaps in our curriculum. Like Dennis said, I try to figure out all the time, like where do we need to do things a little bit differently and how does that look? We've been working all year on giving our staff at the middle school, high school, professional development and tier 2 interventions for our students who aren't quite getting it in that first level of instruction. And then we also have been using IXL to give targeted instruction to our students. I just met with a group of 8th graders this morning or this afternoon to get feedback on them with how we're using IXL, how we could do it differently, and how they could use it to be able to learn. One of the other major changes that we made, and in hindsight, again, I think it was a good move, is our 8th grade math scores. We had 8 students who dropped from proficient or advanced in 8th grade for math. And when I highlighted and looked at those 8 students, 5 of them had been jumped up to algebra and completely skipped 8th grade math. So that was a red flag to me. We already, as you're aware, we don't have the jump up from 8th grade to freshman year anymore. We don't have that as an option at this time. But as we're moving in, and as I mentioned last month, we are looking at triangulating our information that we have on our students, taking IXL, their forward exams, as well as the teacher input to make better decisions about how do we move our kids and how do we make sure that those gaps don't exist when they do move forward or get accelerated in that program. To go against that, we also had 2 students who were not proficient or advanced, who were taking a freshman math last year as 8th graders, who went from basic up to proficient. So it's not a complete picture their kids, right? I mean, a child's dog dies or a grandma passes away, or, they get into a fight with their boyfriend or girlfriend, and that one day snapshot of their testing could be completely down the tubes. The one positive thing that I did find in going through the data that I had is it doesn't seem like it was one student who completely tanked in both reading and math, or ELA and math. So that made me feel a little better that, you know, the kids for the most part are more than likely still taking the test seriously, if they're trying their best. It's not like it was just, you know, a one student fluke. One of the benefits of us being small is I can look at our students and I can see with ease and know like, oh, that's right, this student had this or that student had that. And I can meet with these students and try to figure out, why did you have such a big drop? What's going on? So I'm aware of the red on here of us not meeting, but I also want you to know that we have some things in place that we're working on to make sure that we're having our students perform on their one snapshot as best as they can when it's given.
Any questions about that?
I don't think any questions from me, just, again, it's scary, right? Just those three classes, especially looking at that math, you know, and I think it was the same story last year, right?
Well, I can give kind of and for, you know, just looking at the triangle, and I won't share it later then, but I do have my mid-year updates for the IXL testing. For math, we did see an average increase in student growth from the beginning of the year to mid-year of 104 points, in the 6th grade. We had only one student who decreased or stayed the same, specifically for math. For 7th grade, the average growth was a little bit smaller. It was 59, but the range was from 10 points all the way up to 120 points. And then for 8th grade math, the range, I don't have an average for that one, I apologize, but the range of growth was from 10 points up to 240 points. So I do think that we're going to see progress with the math. I am curious to see what it looks like on next year's forward, because we'll get this data pretty quick by the end of summer, I think is when we get it. You know, and so I can have a better idea of where we're at, but, I can truthfully say I'm optimistic, and while I can feel that way because I'm in the building and I see it, I don't have a reason to believe that it won't be better after this year.
Thank you. Any other questions on report card? Oh, sorry, that was just the testing. Did you want to cover the report card?
I'll do that next, sure. We're trying to historically, since I've been here, try to do this local report card. The state report card says we exceed expectations as a district, but it doesn't tell the total story about our district. So I always try to give something like this. We put this on our district website, on social media, and we have handouts when they come up by Andrea or down by these guys, and they give any visitors or someone touring our district, here, this is a little something while we walk around the district, show you stuff, and this is some information you can take home with you and digest. You see our graduation rates compared to the state average, and then state testing, which is a lot of based on the data that you just saw that was pulled off of that sheet that you have. Post-graduation is interesting. We have lots of kids go to four-year college, but a lot of them go to the two-year schools also. And then we do have a number that go right off to work. And part of that is because of the school to work type experiences that many of our kids are having in the community. They can go right off to one of the businesses in the area, and they have some skills already that they've developed while they're in high school, so they could be employable right away. Co-curricular activities, and this is for two or more. We're looking for kids who are actively involved. I don't just play football, or I don't just do pep band. I do multiple things. So this is kids who are in 2 or more organized activities, a sport, a club, music, whatever it is. And you see that our numbers, it seems just be growing each year of kids being involved. I think that's a real indicator of future success. More involved kids usually gain more skills in these other activities that they can then use as they grow into adulthood. Fine arts participation, it's mostly the arts and music, and that's been growing. The state report cards below, and of course the thing that's kept us from going to referendum for the last year is the open enrollment numbers at the bottom. And this is simply the number of kids open enrolled in. This is not the differential, but this is the number of kids who now, you go back about 10 years, 33 kids chose our district. It's up to 77, and I think this spring actually was 80. There's gained some more since September, but these are the September numbers. So it's just something that we can get out there and share with people and say, you know, this is a pretty good place for kids, and stuff on the back. There's many opportunities in Fall River that maybe they wouldn't get somewhere else. So just anything to tell our story and not that we said someone else telling it for us.
What's this, school choice enrollment, open enrollment look like for next year?
That
That have ended in February, didn't it?
it started actually February 4th, I think was the date. So
Okay.
that's part of why this has gotten out into the media and our website and stuff now, because open enrollment's been open for like a week and a half. So that's why,
Already had one parent call and ask for a team.
excellent. So that we're right in the middle of the open enrollment season right now, so you'll see the applications come in and they're not finalized until actually who shows up in September.
Yeah.
But we start getting those applications now, but you can get some in the summer and we got some in October because they wanted to move. So you think about, I think we're about plus 80 better than we were. At 10,000 a kid, that's $800,000 more revenue, less expenses. That's, if we hadn't done this from 4 years ago to now, we'd be at an $800,000 gap in our budget right now. If we hadn't turned the open enrollment.
There is legislation too, right, to equalize the open enrollment funding, is there something with that? Cause technically you get less if kids open enroll than if they lived here right now, right?
A little bit.
Yeah, so
But
there was.
more if there's special ed.
Yeah, there was a proposal, I don't know if it's gone anywhere yet, but to level those out, so.
Yeah, and the problem is what we get per kid on the revenue limits, every school district is vastly different.
Sure,
Goes from 11,000 to
that's what it
22,000.
was, you would get the amount of that district they were leaving was the proposal.
Okay,
So it benefits schools that have a net positive open enrollment.
Yeah.
So we'll see if that goes anywhere.
yeah. So all sorts of, we were talking before about another bill going through. There's a lot of education bills trying to go through at the last second.
All right, I think that report card is well done. It looks nice, yeah. So, thank you for that. I believe we had the 22-23 financial audit. Is that covered?
Gave you this document last month, and Nathan asked me if I go through it page by page in detail. So I will actually not do that. If you ever look at page 9, it shows the numbers we've seen about the deficit that we had this past year, about 141,000. It also shows the fund balance we had last year compared to this year, which one of these sheets, that's the numbers right on that sheet that I gave yesterday or 2 days ago to the committee, those numbers are on there. And then the last thing is page 52. I just want to highlight that every year they have to have findings. If they find some issues with us, and the only finding we have is one that will probably be here every year for perpetuity, is lack of segregation to duties. The available office staff precludes a proper segregation of duties and control areas reviewed. And we asked them, could we do anything different? Because Andrea and I and Colleen, we have some separation. She does payroll, she does accounts payable, and I verify that the balance of the checkbook's been balanced each month, that those numbers are correct. So we separate as much as we can. And the response at the bottom says we as auditors agree with the finding, but do not believe it's cost effective to increase office staff in an attempt to bring a more effective segregation of duties. So they're basically saying you're doing as best you can with 3 people. If you had less than 3 people, it'd be a little more difficult, but they say that they have to keep that as a finding.
All right, thank you for that. Any questions on the financial audit? All right, then I believe we'll take a motion to accept the 22-23 financial audit.
I'll make a motion to accept the 2022-2023 financial audit.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion by Nate, seconded by Derek. Any further discussion? All those in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
All those opposed. All right, we had some middle school, high school course proposals.
Yeah, so last week, we shared from the Ed Committee, the course proposals for summer strength and speed and intro to audio visual production. I think we just need action and a vote on those two courses.
Okay, yeah, I know we were part of that as education committee. Does someone want to make a motion for them?
I'll motion to accept it's just the two, right? The two, new course proposals for the middle school, high school. I'll second it, Jeff.
We have a motion by Ken, seconded by Guy. Any further discussion? All those in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, and then we will look at the upcoming financial forecast.
So I put at your station all the documents that the Buildings and Grounds Committee got on Monday. Yeah,
Monday.
and most of these went to the Finance Committee a few weeks ago, but there's a little bit more than that here. And one member was not in either committee, so you have them all too. I'll just highlight what they are. You got the fund balance, the history, what's going on in the district, and I highlighted the last 3 years that I was here. You've got the one that shows the change in the rate of inflation compared to the rate of increase in school funding, just to give a highlight. The next two are really the forecast. The first one is the Baird model for just assuming those assumptions up on top, that our pupil count went down this year and stays fairly steady next year, but it goes down a little bit in the future. It's a fairly pessimistic pupil count. And again, this is the kids living in our district, not the kids who are here. We have more kids than that in our building because of open enrollment, but that's the kids who live in our district, doesn't matter where they go to school. And then the per pupil increase of 325, which is for the next 400 years, unless the legislature or a new governor cancels that, that would be more pessimistic. The per pupil aid, that's in the state level probably, and the equalized value growth, last 2 years has been over 12%. I don't think it's gone up that high. When I talked to some realtors that these things really slowed down the growth. I don't know what you guys, some of you guys see in your industry that there's not as much growth in or selling of homes. So I put down 5% for a few years and going back to 3%. We think we're kind of coming into a landing from COVID and from the high inflation. So I'm just predicting that if any of these numbers change, we update it and give you new numbers. So if we do make a decision to do something, these numbers will be a little bit different by then. But at this point, our best understanding, we have those revenues, expenditures. Last year, you see the deficit. And what we're thinking, we'll probably have a deficit with electrical bills. They've gone up a bunch this year. We thought we'd have a deficit this year. You looked into the future. The only reason that we're looking black the next couple of years is if we get our numbers correct for pupil count for summer school, we'll get sparsity aid. You have to have a certain number of students per square mile. This has been his baby for
Yes,
years.
Absolutely.
He's proud of it. We might be able to get sparsity. It's like $170,000. It's big money. That would be new money. Otherwise, those positive numbers would be negative. So we have to be careful how we count our summer school this year to make sure that we qualify for that. So you can see the mill rate, 6.91 last year, 6.88 this year. And with doing nothing unusual, that mill rate would drop for next year. Now, we had the same possibility the last 2 years, and we added some extra money to our referendum debt levy. You see, the debt levy should be about 570,000. 2 years ago, we added 500,000 to it, and this year we added about, it looks like maybe 275,000 to it to try to keep the mill rate kind of level, because we don't want the mill levy to drop too far. And if we had to go to referendum, it's going to jump up a bunch. So if we do go to referendum, that $275,000. We just don't levy that for debt. We actually just ask for that. So that's one way of not making a referendum as huge a tax impact, because we wouldn't defease any debt there. So the second sheet is, well, what if we did ask for $500,000? And this is where a discussion will happen. If tonight you all kind of say, yeah, I think we should go to referendum, there would be discussion at future meetings, well, what number should that be? We don't have to decide that number yet, but we've got to start narrowing in on it. But there's 500,000, what that might look like, with the conditions up above, that would be a mill rate of 7.17. That'd be 29 cents. So $100,000 home, that'd be 29 extra dollars the next year. $200,000 home, it'd be $58 that next year. So people can extrapolate whatever their property value is. And you can see that mill rate would drop back again the next years, partly because you get aided on how much you spend. Well, if you spend more one year, you get more aid the next year. So that drops the mill rate back down a little bit. So that is, we'll probably, if you say yes tonight, we think we should look to referendum. You might say, okay, Dennis, you gave us this scenario, but how about give us next month this, or give me that, give me some other scenarios you might be interested in and see what they might do. So you can start narrowing in on what you would want to do. The picture of playground equipment. Ryan, you want to tell them about the playground you want to play on?
Yeah, what we have there is a rendering of a playground piece of equipment that Mr. Harrison had brought me. There are several different ones that we looked at. We were trying to get something square footage wise that would be similar, and then also feature wise somewhat similar to what we have right now. So there's a piece out there we have right now. If you drove by last year, you saw some beautiful caution tape on, and then this year, Mr. Anderson put a board over the broken slide that was there. The piece of equipment, when the company came up, they said they did not have the mold anymore to replace that slide piece because it was over 20 years old. They said it looks to be about 25 to 27 years old. They said you've gotten your lifetime out of that piece of equipment. So we do not have a mold anymore for that. So we can certainly keep that board there, not have that slide there, use it the way it is now. However, we were looking at, is there a way to update that, and is there, this would be one of those potential projects.
And that's part of this list here.
Yeah. So on the next page, the list, and Nathan mentioned a lot of these already,
I just forget the playground.
but yeah, but what we try to hit on here is reasons people would say yes. The pool, when we do surveys, they like our staff, they think we got a good buildings, they like keep our buildings up. They love the pep band. We got stage upgrades here for the band and technology and tech ed. There's a new committee that's been formed to be a tech ed advisory committee from businesses around town, and Chris Lidner, I think is her name, who's former Allison Dairyland, who's got elementary kids here. They're really pushing to help them have a very good tech ed group. So there's stuff here for tech ed. So trying to come up with things that people say, yeah, our kids should have that. Our building should be like that. Our staff should stay. So that's some reasons of why maybe they would come that you would have heard about. And then when we talked on Monday, the question of, well, what have we spent money on already? So you heard about this list already, that we have taken care of a lot of things to let people know we've been responsible so far. We've taken care of what we can take care of. It just at some point, money's gonna run out where we can't keep taking care of things. And then there's a financial comparison of our district compared to others, the mill rates and how much we spend per pupil. And some of this, like the mill rate is based on, if you have a lot of property value, the mill rate's gonna be lower. If you don't have much property value, the mill rate's gotta be higher. So if you look at the top 3 or 4 on both sides, Cambria, Rio, and Randolph are all in the higher mill rates and the more dollars spent per students. Well, part of that, if you spend the same dollars as we have and have less students, like Cambria's got 106 kids in the high school. They have less kids. If they spend the same dollars we have, it's gonna be a lot more dollars per kid because there's just less kids. So it's good to know how we compare to other districts. And you've seen this one, where 85% of the school districts in the state have gone to the revenue limit, override the revenue limit referendums. Not all these passed, but there's only 64 that haven't. So we've gone a long time and talk about the value of open enrollment. We've staved this off longer than most because of open enrollment. And then this was the last area referendum history. This is new. The finance committee hasn't seen this one yet. The guys saw this on Monday. 357 schools have gone for this referendum, the 85 that haven't. 65 schools have one time gone for this referendum, 67 have gone twice, 68 have gone 3 times the referendum. But 157 schools have asked their taxpayers 3 times to go to referendum to override the revenue limits, out of which 85 have done it 6 times. And 15 school districts have gone 10 times to ask to override the revenue limits. So we are way behind many of them on this. And then I break down the spring referendum questions, the number of questions districts. 65 are looking for operating expense like we possibly would do in the fall, and 34 asking for debt issues. So Cambria is going for the 4th time. They're asking for 2.5 million in 3 years each. Green Lake is going for the 4th time in 4 years, between 1.4 million to 2.2 million. Houston's trying for a 2nd time to borrow for capital improvements. They got it turned down last year. They have twice done operating revenue exemption limits. Johnson Creek, there's the first time they're going to revenue limit override, and they're asking for $3 million recurring, which means not just for 3 or 4 years. Add that to our revenue limits forever. And that's the district that I've been working with as one of my bear districts. And that's the number they chose. I sat down with the school board twice like this and went through all the numbers and talked about, here's what your numbers on bear model say. And that's what they decided to do, because I don't tell them what to do. I just advise, kind of like we're doing right here, right now. Marshall is in spring is going to go for 5 million. They 6 times have had operating, excuse me, have gone for operating. Their next one expires in 2025, so they'll probably come back for a 7th time pretty soon. Parkview, my old district, I was down there when we tried to override the revenue limits, and I was standing up in front with the superintendent trying to explain the needs. And it's the first time they'd gone to revenue limits, and one of the people said, "We can save money. We don't need both of you." That's when I started looking for a different place to go. But they are going for the 5th time for 2.2 million. Williams Bay is their 3rd time. They're asking for 3 years, 1.25 to 1.75. So when I put $500,000 there, it looks really small compared to the ones that are being asked now. And down below, you can see Marshall, Partyville, Poinette, Princeton, Ryan, Waupun, what they have passed in 2022 or 2023, and how many times that they've gone out to referendum. So it's kind of nice to know we're not the only people that have done this or looked for this. So if we do make that decision, you kind of see what's been going on. And the next sheet is like all the referendums in the state this spring. That's nothing I'm going to go through right now, but if you want to look at that one, you can see what every district that is going to referendum is asking for. And this is all on the DPI website. I just copied it off the DPI site. So that's kind of what's going on. And I'm not telling you we should go to referendum. I'm not saying we shouldn't, but I want your direction kind of tonight, what you think we might want to do. And if there's more information or scenarios you'd like me to bring back so that we have more things to talk about next month, we'll probably, if we do decide, yeah, we want to go in the next month or two's board meetings, kind of narrow down, yeah, I think this is probably what we're going to ask for.
So I'll start, right? And I do want to make sure we have a good discussion, full board, right? Anyone that has questions, this is the time to ask them, right? But, you know, I'm very supportive of the need to go to referendum. I think there is a teacher retention piece that's important, right? So I think adjusting base salary, however we decide to do it, right? But I think that's a very important piece. You know, this is a really good list of things, and, you know, they're not gonna get cheaper, right? So things will get worse, and, you know, if we don't fix things, it's kicking the can, doesn't really help us. And again, we've got a lot of good momentum, right? I think we've been fiscally responsible for the last few years, and now I think, you know, we even have a chance to kind of play with mill rate here this year because we've over levied on kind of the complex. So if we need to under levy, or if we need to kind of play with that, we have the opportunity. So I mean, I feel like this is the time. I don't know what the number is going to be, but I think it's, you know, this was really helpful for me to see is kind of, you know, what the numbers from the other schools are. 500 seemed right 2 months ago, now it seems low, but. I don't know, I'm very supportive of it. I think we have some selling to do in the community, just to make sure people know what it is and what it's not. But yeah, I'm supportive.
I would agree that I'm supportive also, and I think, like you said, that 500 could seem low depending on how you look at it, but I also like the idea that. Like relatively with that 500,000 over 3 years, you could get this list done and still have room for the teacher retention piece. The salary increases and things like that, and some other unforeseen things that might come up. Also knowing it's our first one, it might be good to err on more of the side of like closer to what our imminent needs are. And as like, if the community is like really supportive of it, and we're like, okay, we can have like a 3-year rolling facility schedule to look at. That would be also helpful planning. I'm guessing property value might be a little higher than that, so the mill rate still might be lower than that 717. But it's good to be cautious as of now, but I think like it'll be right around 7, so that potentially won't be a huge jump for people. It might make it better too. I think like you said, and like we've all kind of said that like really telling the story of like from our last referendum, how it went, what the outcome was now, and then like the benefits we've seen from it, and making sure that's just like a really accurate historic representation of like how we got here. And like that list of what we've done the past 4 years, of like, here's the projects we did with the COVID relief money. Because for the average observer outside, they're gonna think like, oh, school got all this money from the COVID relief, what did we do with it? Well, here's actually the things we did to negate a referendum 3 years ago. So I think those will be helpful pieces that people will ultimately be for and will ultimately be very proud of.
Next.
I echo what you guys say. I agree with it. I don't know if the number is 500,000 or it's 700,000 or 200,000, or I shouldn't say 200,000, but somewhere between 500,000 and $1 million. I don't know what that number is right now. I think it's something that needs to be done. I don't know if it's, I think it's a referendum based on our success that we've had and the success that we want to have in the future. I think a lot of it has to be based on success. I think we've got great administration. I think we've got great teachers. We need to take care of that. We need to see this through for the next generation of kids that start kindergarten next year or start high school next year. So this is, to me, it's not so much of the needs, but to look at it as success and what it takes to be successful. Certainly there's needs in here. But really, we just want to be successful. We want to continue to be a leader in this area. Again, go around to the other schools and tell me where they have facilities that are as nice as ours. They just, I think we have a lot to be proud of, and it takes a lot of work to keep them up. So I'm all for it.
Yeah, I'm for it too. The list showing that we're one of the last 64 schools to not go to an operating referendum in 30-some years is impressive. It shows that we're financially responsible. This completed project list for the last 4 years is impressive on its own. Then when we want to go to operating and you look at all of this possible needs, this is all, you need an HVAC system. There's just no way that we can have no heat or no air conditioning, an upgrade of bathrooms, stuff like this. It's all stuff that I think is a necessity to kind of echo what Nate was saying, to build the success that we've had and keep the success. So I'm definitely for a potential referendum. But money wise, I don't know what the right number is, like you guys said, we'll figure that out, but I'm for improvements.
Improvements are the number one thing schools gotta do. And if I'm reading this number right, 1.1 million. That's the number I'm looking for. I think if we are honest with the people and tell them what we're gonna do and show them something like this of what we wanna do with it, and we do it. I think that's gonna go a long way.
The one thing to talk about, because there was, I don't want to, it's hard the last referendum, there was some things that didn't go right. Most of the times when I'm in construction and I am, if I'm at Design Savior Holy Angel, or if I'm at, West Bend High School, or wherever I may be, most every project that we're on, has a, gosh, I lost the word now. Has a owner's rep that's involved in the project. Somebody that is, somebody that's, not for the district, not for the board, but somebody that's in the middle, that understands good fixes, bad fixes, where can we spend our money? Ultimately, we have a say in everything that goes on, but those owner reps, when you get into the production, when you get into production meetings and everything else, those honor reps, they hold everyone accountable. And I don't know if maybe that's something, we're not gonna build a school, we're not gonna build we're not gonna build anything. But is there something that would make us look like we have somebody that's going to be on the side of the community? And on the side of the board and on the side of, the district? I don't know if that's something that's necessary.
I haven't thought about that. It's-
Yeah, like I said, a lot of them, like I said, there's a lot of, there's somebody that's there that, watches over everything. And we're doing that, but is that something that maybe would help us? Because if there would have been an owner's rep, and I just say it for myself, if I would have been involved and could have been the middle person between the construction company, the board and the district, there'd be a lot of things I'd be like, well, wait a second. That doesn't make a lot of sense. And again, we're spending money not on buildings, but maybe it's something to look at that shows people that, that we want to have somebody that is also overseeing everything. I don't know.
Good thought.
I think there's something to be said about the transparency, right? Just the commitment to transparency of, we'll show you exactly how we're spending the money, right? We'll hold ourselves accountable to it.
It's gonna come down to us.
Yeah.
It is,
The
it is.
bottom line, it's gonna be us.
It's gonna be us.
But I see where you're going with it too, that you have somebody that will report to us and say, hey, this isn't going right. We're gonna have to do something.
Right, well, and again, we're not building anything really,
No,
but there's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of money at the last referendum. And, and I don't know if that's gonna leave a sour. Some of it, I think some of the backlash came because of sports facilities and not, education based or, per se, I guess. Maybe that was some of the reason, but this is a little bit different.
Yeah.
But again, it's maybe something to think about.
it's one of the things, school is still a school, not a sports team.
Right, that's
You know,
that's exactly it.
On this list, there's nothing sports.
Nope,
There's nothing
Nope.
sports.
and that's why I say,
And I think it's
if
important.
we're looking for
that way.
1.127 million,
Yeah.
I'm going the whole ball wax.
The list, of course, I think it's maybe our third draft on the list that we've been working on with Brian Anderson, Jake Hartman. But that can change as we continue, and it's not prioritized like this first, that next, it's just a list. And both of those lists, so what we did, we may find more things, oh, we forgot to put that on the list, so these lists will evolve a little bit. One possibility is, you tell me if you want some different scenarios for next time, or another thing possibly is finance committee could meet before the next board meeting and maybe grind out some more of what you think is the best numbers to bring to the full board. What we think we want to do, and I could bring them some scenarios, and they could then say, hey, let's bring that number to the board, let's bring that scenario to the board.
What does 500,000 look like? What does 750,000?
Yes.
What does $1 million look like?
And,
Because on the list, everybody has something that they want to fix, and it's all very important stuff.
sure,
I just don't wanna do it now and then say, 2 years down the road, say, "Ah, we gotta get this fixed."
And that's a good question. If we go, let's just say we would go for $1 million, do we have to tax that? Right, do we?
you don't technically have to. If you said, like, for instance, whatever number you pass, that just gives you authority up to that number. You don't have to tax that.
Yep.
Almost everybody does, so they need all that money. And there's a few more things that tech ed that they didn't have numbers for, so I didn't put them down. And staff retention on the bottom, of course, I don't have a number for that.
No,
Depends on how you'd want to do that.
but to be honest with you, that would be the number one,
Yeah.
that's the number one thing.
And that might be something I could start with finance committee and they can bring something to you guys. I'm a little apprehensive of saying, we're gonna give every teacher a $20,000 raise. That's, I know that's not the number, I keep something ridiculous, but that can, that's. That's go fine. I worry about the backlash, oh, we're just doing this to pay teachers. So that's a delicate thing, how you handle that.
I think whatever we do too with regards to that has to be sustainable. It can't be something that.
Yeah, we're good for 3 years, and all of a
Right.
sudden, oh, we gave a bunch of raises, and now
Yeah.
we need an
Now we have
operating,
to let
now we
someone
need an
go.
operating
Yeah,
budget.
you don't want to-
Yes, yeah. You know, but I think it's also important to know that, you know, we're not, we shouldn't change. We shouldn't change who we are because, you know, going for the referendum keeps who we are, and it keeps us growing and being better. And I think, we've hired some good teachers over the last few years. We've hired a social studies teacher. We've hired, you know, another yes, thank you. And to go backwards now would also be foolish, or to say, well, gosh, we're $190,000 short, where can we cut our budget? We're going backwards. That's not going forward.
The one option would be, if you go in November, it's early enough in November that if it passes, there's enough time for me to get that on our revenue limit sheet before we set the tax levy. So we can still get it on next year's budget, basically. These things wouldn't be in part of the budget, but now when that money comes, okay, now we can accomplish those. But if the things failed in November, we could find out from the community, okay, what was wrong? What didn't you like? Why was the number wrong? You could go again then in April. Because you can go 2 referendum questions per calendar year. So we just do one in 24, and then that'd be one at the top of 2025. That's a possibility. That would be for the following school year. So it wouldn't be next school year, it'd be for the next school year after that.
And again, to go back through the paperwork, I think going through the paperwork, it tells a really great story. It
Yeah.
tells a really great story of where we were, where we are, and where we want to go. And that's, I mean, at the end of the day, if you have a plan of where you were at, you know, where you were, where you are, and where you want to go, I mean, people that are going to say no are, they're not looking at the big picture.
Well, we've been bragging about. We hired the right teachers. We have a phenomenal culture here. The report card to back it up. So we need some referendum to keep all that. Just like you said, the people that aren't gonna vote for it aren't gonna vote for it no matter what.
Yeah, if there's a time, this is probably the time. Based on what Kenny just said, we have that out there right now.
Well, you don't wanna borrow some and then
Not have enough.
not have enough, and I
Yeah.
mean,
So,
you gotta go
Yeah,
deep
that's-
enough into it, and if you wait. You borrow those now and then wait next year, well, that $1,000 or that $100,000 bus is $110,000.
Yeah,
You know, the longer you wait, the more it's gonna cost.
Sure.
I'd rather jump the gun and do it all
And
than.
the HVAC thing, I think it's 186,000, and Brian says that's if we do it all at once. Usually you can't afford that. You do some this year, some next year, some the year after, then it's 225,000. This is do it all at once. Sure.
Or even like Brian said, like right now, we were giving Brian accolades, like he is up probably weekly, if not multiple times a week, up fixing the boards and the pieces of that. Like he has saved us a lot of money, but I mean, the other likelihood or the other fact that we have to talk about is if it goes and he can't fix it, now it's gonna be that much more again.
As we get it updated, it'd be easier on him, because he's spending a lot of time trying to keep it going.
Well, patchwork for anything was gonna cost you more and it's not a good of a product.
Well, it costs you whatever to patch it, and then you're still gonna have to replace it.
And you're still- yeah, you gotta be both.
So if we go for $750,000 next year, 750,000 for 3 years in a row. We get to the 3rd year and we only we have this 750,000, but we're not gonna need it all. does that go into a savings account then that,
if you tax for it,
that's
you
what, that
can,
was, okay.
you
I-
can tax for it and use it somewhere.
Somewhere, okay, that's what I was wondering, the tax thing, I wasn't comprehending the tax thing.
It would just grow this number, so right
Okay,
now,
yes,
we have
okay.
5.1,
Yeah.
and so that would just increase that, and which I'd like to see that increased a little bit,
Right,
you know,
right.
closer to like 1.5 would be our
Okay, okay,
balance, but.
So there's the fund balance could go up a little bit. It'd be nice to have a little cushion. We have a high need student moves in, that's gonna cost $100,000 for that one student. Be nice to not be just running tight. If that happens, okay, we could take care of that kid. You know, it'd be nice to have a little cushion too.
Yep.
Do you want the finance committee to meet? I kind of wonder do you want them to meet before we come to the board meeting next month and go through some things and bring some scenarios to you?
I think that's probably a great idea. I think it's important that they have an idea of what we're looking at, maybe if, you know, I guess, yeah, before the meeting, or they have a couple of days to digest it. I mean, I've thought a lot about what we talked about on Monday. That was kind of nice to be able to walk away and go, oh man, that was a really great meeting, and now I have time to actually think about it. You know,
Because we could pick a different night, not right before the meeting, to have finance. So
Right,
you
we-
can mull it over before we come, like these guys had a chance to do.
it was nice, I walked away from the meeting thinking, I mean, I walked away from the meeting thinking that the bus barn would be a really nice place to have a tech ed classroom. And if we're gonna spend money, why don't we find a place to put buses, too? I mean, I think, I think there's so many nice things in Fall River. And you look at the tech ed space, it's a smaller space, but there's all sorts of different things we can do. And it made me think a lot about just all sorts of different ideas after I walked away and was able to, again, digest what we just talked about. So you guys do it however you want. You're the finance committee.
So would you like to see scenarios for 750 and for 1 million and just see what those scenarios would look like?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And I think also having better numbers on staff retention, right? So what are the different levers? So we know these, right? But then what is the staff retention? So if we increased everybody X thousand, if we did it via bonuses, if we did it via base upgrades, or, just kind of play out the different scenarios.
That would be helpful if I could sit down with like the two of you and say, here's the ways we could do it, this is what it's gonna cost.
Yeah.
Could you theoretically, could you go at a $500,000 clip, borrow 500,000, but do it for 10 years? And pay off and start to work on the list, start to work on teacher retention, but yet knowing that each year you're gonna have more money to continue to retain? Or is 10 years, I mean, when you say $3 million forever, that seems like,
Yeah.
I mean, that's like just, I can't imagine that ever passing, but
But it scares me to be recurring, which is forever. The longer it goes, people are a little less reluctant. They like to
reluctant,
say,
okay.
we'll do it for this long, but then come back to us again.
Especially though knowing what the state will do any given 2-year cycle.
Right,
So-
okay.
And I do think these membership numbers are conservative, right? I do
I'm-
think housing.
I think conservative, yeah.
around By the time you get to 2030.
Yeah.
I think,
If I'm way low on those numbers, then we're better off.
yeah, no, it's a good conservative, but I do think that'll change.
And to change the subject just for a second, you guys said that our teacher retention at this point was looking really
Don't know of
positive.
anyone leaving right now.
The question I would have, how about Mr. Pickard? Is he gonna stay for another, you think?
In our preliminary conversations, he's very happy here. He would like to stay here. He said he would let me know for sure in March. What his plans were, but we do have some lead, potential math person if we were to need it.
Okay. So just to kind of bring this home, so we'll schedule a finance committee and then we'll come back to the next board meeting with specific scenarios, playing out both different kind of revenue numbers, right? But also then kind of the expenses and dealing out different options for staff retention.
I think that's good.
Okay. And then do we need any motion or any action out of this formally, just to kind of say that, when we started this, all 5 of us were in agreement to pursue a referendum
I think that statement, it's not, you aren't adopting anything.
Yep.
Uh,
But we're all for it.
Yeah, so I think that statement comes across, it could go in the notes that all the board members are, stated their, feeling that it's best to go to referendum to meet the needs of the future needs of the district.
And I think it was implied, but you know, I think the intention is November, right? So that we'll pursue referendum in November and we'll use the next couple months to finalize the details.
You got that? And then, maybe before I go to closed session, I'll go grab my calendar and we'll figure out a date before we leave.
And then, did you want to highlight, so there is this survey company, did you want to highlight that or just let that be part of the next update as well?
Excuse me, I should ask the question. Do we want that as a motion that we will pursue a referendum? With nothing set right now, or you want just a statement the board is in favor of?
I mean, I think to make it as real as possible for the people that read the notes, it should have a motion to it.
That we want, that you would like to pursue a referendum this November? To meet the future needs of the
I
district.
would, the only reason why I'm hesitant of it is because why a lot, like, I think that's the most obvious solution right now, but like, say some new information comes from XYZ, like, maybe we decide it needs to be. You know, in August, like coming up sooner, or it's gonna be in April, maybe we just like. Keep it as like a resolution, like not as a,
A resolution to consider,
yeah.
or
a
to
referendum,
investigate.
Yeah,
something
versus like
that.
making, passing it and unlocking it into something, who knows what could come up.
Because you are investigating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It could be a motion to investigate the potential of a referendum this November. To meet the future needs of the district.
Maybe just a referendum in the upcoming future. I just don't want us to say November and then we decide.
I
something
get
else.
it.
That'll make it so much. I'll make a motion that we will explore a referendum to meet the future financial needs of the district.
I'll second that.
All right, I have a motion by Derek, seconded by Nate. Do we have any further discussion? All those in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Was there a different question you had, Jeff, before we took that sidetrack?
You had the cost of a survey, I forgot.
Oh, yeah. Oh, here it is. School Perceptions is a company that will do surveys to tell you what your community wants. It's around $7,000 to $10,000 for them to survey our community to see what they would accept. And they would work with us and put it together, and let that help determine what number we would ask for. That's something you want to consider as we go into next month. Is that an expense you want to incur? Hoping that you get the money back as a past referendum.
Is it sent out via mail?
They had multiple ways of doing it.
Do they send like a sheet along that says, pick these options? Because I mean, if somebody sent that to me at my house, I mean, I would have no idea that a CNC router thing is gonna cost $10,000, you know,
Yeah.
if they even
Done
need
one
one.
before,
you
as
know?
like, so they did it in Beaver Dam before they passed the referendum there a few years ago. So I've taken it as an employee, they send it out to employees, parents, community members, and they have different surveys based upon what your role is, at least that was my experience, in the district. And then they ask you questions like, how do you feel about, you know, your school's progress towards academic achievement? It's like basically just trying to figure out what is your community, what do they value, and then what are some of those things that they would support, but it doesn't come right out and say, would you support putting up a new playground? There are more hidden questions, are there samples in there? There's more hit, like they're more a roundabout, and then when they analyze the data, that's when they say, okay, your community would support X, Y, and Z based upon how they responded to this survey.
Do you know if their success rate?
It's a really high success rate.
It is very high.
Pretty much. What the community tells you happens.
Mhm.
If
If you follow.
follow what the community says they'll accept, is pretty much gonna accept. You don't follow what the community says, you're gonna get beat. So they're pretty accurate.
What's the response rate?
I feel like they said it was like 35%, something like that. which doesn't sound like a lot, but it seems like whatever percent do reply is typical of the larger who don't reply.
Yeah, right in your folder. It took,
Yeah.
the ones that I took were about 10-15 minutes tops, maybe 10 minutes.
Was it an email or?
So if you don't do it, they do multiple methods, so they track your responses, it's anonymous, but they track it. And then if you don't respond with one, then if that was my experience, I don't know if it's different, if you did get different options for different amounts of money. But if you don't respond via email, then they send it through paper, or if you don't respond by paper, whichever, I can't remember what came first.
So if,
Then you get it the other
if
way.
we did want to do this, they would come here and meet with us, or they'd do it virtually, that's probably cheaper. We would meet with them virtually and to help them know what kind of questions to ask and how to get the survey out.
And if you do it in November, for that type of a referendum, and you do this, and the success rate is high, you could, I mean, I like the sound of getting things done in November versus not getting it through November, and then having to go back to the drawing board. And if the rate's that high, and you get it done, that makes sense to me.
I do personally see value in it, especially because we talked about like the transparency piece and the community voice. Although there is a small expense along with it, like I think they do a really good job of saying like, here's, here's the questions. And like, then they can come back to the community and say, here was like the community's interest in these, and people are kind of like, oh, okay, like I can get behind that. Because it feels like it's beyond just us talking about it. It's got people.
I think it's a nice olive branch based on perception of how the lesson started versus how it ended and the success of it ending. It's a nice olive branch to say, hey, we want your input on this next one.
I'm supportive of it as well. I think it'll help us in the messaging too, just as we're talking to the community to know kind of what to lean into and what to maybe, we
I
need to.
think what I'll do is I'll make a copy of this and email it to all of you, so you can see what from them. And they were at the School Board Association too. I went to the superintendent search one, I went to one that these guys are doing. And they also were part of the Baird one that I was in on. They also were part of that same presentation, so they were really big down there, explaining their stuff, what they do.
So do you think we should meet with them? Would that be our best next step, is to meet with school perceptions people first and then plan? Because obviously we can forecast any scenario we want, but until we really know a little more community data, it might not be helpful. So would that be our best next step, is to meet with school perceptions next, get the community data? Then more of a specific?
Number you mean?
Yeah.
Well, they're gonna, I think we might wanna do both at the
Okay.
same time. Cause when they do the survey, they're gonna ask numbers, would you accept this, would you support this? And if we have some numbers, we know, is it this or is it this? I think we need to kind of know closer to what we would think we would ask. And have them incorporate that in to see if that's in the range where people would accept. I think we may want to do both at the same time.
And we can be strategic in then what we want to ask for.
Yeah, it's,
Or even-
that's what it is.
And that might be, like you said, that transparent third party who's like kind of got everyone's stakes in it, of like that,
It does let the community have their say ahead of time. Before you go to referendum. Oh, they're going to referendum. Well, they asked us.
And it also benefits them when you get to referendum, they've heard it like, oh, we did pass that already? I thought we were talking about that.
Cool.
Based on what you said tonight, then I'm gonna contact them and get that ball rolling. And before we leave, we'll come up with a date when we can start our local conversation.
That's good.
Agreed. All right, last topic on the agenda, or on the new business, sorry, is the board welcome. I assume that's the speech for graduation.
Yes.
Does anyone with a daughter want to give it?
Is there a time limit?
Yeah.
There better be.
I'm gonna be like a life coach out there. I'm gonna be a board welcomer. No. Yes, I can do it. I'm gonna get with Mr. Forensics and have him help me with it maybe a little
We'll
bit.
get some AI. We'll get
AI speech.
Right. Maybe I'll get with Verrier and Chuck Todd.
Yeah.
Make sure you add a little of your own voice and you'll be fine.
I'll be just fine, yeah.
I think I might come just here.
Okay,
Appreciate it, Nate.
Yes, thank you
Yeah.
for doing that.
yeah.
And I'm happy to hand out diplomas if you need. Oh, yeah, we had both of us last.
Okay,
year.
okay, cool.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, there's usually a couple people doing it.
Awesome. Senior.
I know.
Can't say hi at the school board meeting.
I'm sure you can. I see that.
All right, we will move on to principal's reports.
All right, so I'll get started. So to kind of go back, just wanted to loop back to your question earlier about resources that we've been looking for, some of the things that we did get this year for special ed specifically as special ed record. There is a significant lack of resources that I've talked about, but we've had starting to make some headway with both the Hagerty. We did purchase other previously quoted the spring math to start working with our students on math interventions K-12. We have that purchased, teachers are now using that. We also, a lot of resources working with Sarah Kettleton, through CSUP 5. Sarah's been meeting with our teachers on their PPGs, and their growth plans. And one of the things that came through as one of my special ed teachers was a resource from the University of Florida Literacy Institute. We purchased that, and that is also being utilized. We have started that, but like I said, I'm still working on in the special ed department, the literacy, bigger chunk of that, both K-5 and then 6-12. I want to put a big thank you out to the staff this past Friday. Jenny and I, worked pretty hard to get our teachers, together to provide each other their professional development day. Teacher-led professional development. We sent teachers to the conferences, and we wanted them to come back, share some of the great things they learned. There's also resources that were bought this year, for teachers to use, and my first grade team did a wonderful presentation on the, resource they purchased. We had great turnout. We had kindergarten teachers up to third grade as part of that presentation. I had a great presentation with Christy Cada, our new school counselor. She did a great job. Also went to another great presentation from Jessica Sampolinski. And I just thought I got a lot of very positive feedback. On just that presentation piece from colleagues. I think there's a lot of great conversations that come out of that versus having somebody else come in and pontificate in front of us. When it's your own colleagues and it's something that they see as tried and true and it's valuable and they're telling their other colleagues that, it leads to great discussions. I also think it leads to great change. So I'd like to personally see us continue to do that also. I want to thank Heather Jenna Hunter, Rhonda Heaver, Heather Robbins, for the upcoming Read Across America agenda that we sent out today. It has a lot of different activities for that week. A lot of elementary schools across the state do that. They're very different activities, different themes each day. And I think the kids will have a great time with that week. You guys will put the time into that. I want to thank Tom Pollard, something that does, he was a forensics leader for a long time here, and this year he's judging forensics. So I had the great opportunity to cover his classroom while he went out and judged. You're going to hear more about our forensics team. But in talking with Tom, he said our kids did a fantastic job, represented our school very well, not just in what you're going to hear in a little bit, but also just in their character, and how they handle themselves within that. So I think that's great to hear from Tom, and I want to thank Tom for taking the time to do that. It's been a very busy February. As I talked to my staff in the lunchroom yesterday, I said, feels like very February this year. I think everybody's tired. We got grading coming up. We all look at each other some days like we're kind of burning it on both ends and we're feeling it, but to a person, we were still able to laugh about it, kind of make light of it, and we're gonna get through this. And I appreciate my staff and their tenacity for that. And I think we're looking forward to March, and I think we'll do just fine. So that's my report. Any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Just to piggyback, regarding forensics, forensics has been doing really well this year. Krista Powers is our head coach for both middle school and high school forensics, but they're hoping to come next month as celebrate and have the students come as a team, as many as they can get, and have a one, if not two performances, for us after that'll be right before they head to districts. At their first meet that they had, they took third at overall, and they had two members take first place in that first one. Monday, they had their, sub-district meet, and every single one of our students are moving on to districts. So they're doing amazing. So Krista needs a shout out. I know she's been working with Tom, who was the head coach before. So I'm hoping to give more of that to you, or more information on that for you, next week. I have a couple of thank yous. My first thank you piggybacks again a little bit off of what Ryan was saying. We need to acknowledge our special education teachers. We've been pushing them, I would say, all the way K-12 out of their comfort zones, out of what we've always been doing, because that's the way we've always done it. And really just getting resources in their hands, interventions, and I think we're gonna be able to see the benefits of that with our students as we go forward, because we're really working hard to meet every student where they're at and help them continue to grow. So they've been pushed, and they've been working, and they have been amazing. Like they're ready. Like there was no even, arguments or they just really, no negativity. They took it in, and they took our expectations that we had and the resources that we gave them, and they have been running with it. So they deserve a lot of accolades. And then I just also want to mention, Brock Schlimm. He's been doing a phenomenal job as well. Stepping up when we needed to step up, if I'm out of the building, handling things, that come up with regards to our athletes in a very direct and professional manner. And he puts a lot of hours in, he does a lot of hard work, and I've really appreciated him this year and what he has been able to bring to our district. I do have, two things that you can pass around. An update on our social media report card. That was one of my things that I've been working on last year and continuing this year. As you can see, we've increased our growth, in all of our platforms from, I think it's November, is that right, Jeff? From November to January, so you can see on the numbers, where our growth has been. And I also have a flyer to pass around. Melissa Litherland has been working with our junior class. So our junior class and our culinary classes have been partnering to try to help the junior class raise some money. They did a cheesecake sale, last week, I believe it was. And then tomorrow they are partnering to do a bake sale at the boys basketball game. So if you could help support them, that would be great. Andrea and I were laughing because all of the cheesecake supplies and sales, as well as an ice cream machine, were donated to Mrs. Litherland in her classroom by Cheesecake Matthew Goker. And so he donated all of that, and so they were able to get all of their proceeds. I already updated you on where we were at with our mid-year IXL scores. ELA also was growing, and we didn't have any students decline in their English language arts IXL from the beginning of the year till to the mid-year for middle school. And then couple of other things that I want to talk about. Melissa Litherland also received $150 beef grant that I think we talked about before. We were able to reap the rewards of those burgers today. And then Mr. Burr shared with us another grant that we received. Not we, I can't take any credit. Mr. Seiter and I believe Mr. Christian helped with it as well. Applied for a robotics league grant, and we received $4,540 to supply our team with everything that they need for their robotics competition. So we just found that out. So that was pretty awesome. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. So, any other topics before we adjourn to executive session? Oh,
I can get by for it now.
sorry.
Yeah,
That's ready.
Yeah,
Ready.
I don't need to burn anymore. I mentioned my notes here that we're approaching budgeting season already. At the end of February, we are halfway through the fiscal year for payroll. So it's a good time to evaluate where we stand for this year, but also then March and April. A group of us will meet with all the teachers and departments and grade levels to start looking at their budgets for next year, what their needs are, so we can help fit those into our expected budget. Also, the CPI is running at just a hair over 4%, so the Baird model forecast you have, that's what's factored in there for salaries and benefit, for salaries, that's the expectation there. I also note that Colleen and I met with our property and liability coverage broker. We're looking at an increase probably in property tax, property insurance, and workers' comp both. He thinks both of those are gonna go up. The exact amount will be determined in May. And Andrew and I met with a health and dental broker. What, you wanna share what he
Yeah.
talked to us about?
So we're working with a couple new people this year. Susie, who we had worked with for quite a while, went and took a position somewhere else. So Brady and Christian, we met with them, as they get to know our district, and we just shared with them what we think is going well. Seems most staff are happy with our benefits, and we kind of want to keep those where they are and maybe even make a few improvements. Nice healthcare is something that we're looking into. It is kind of an online doctor per se, with no cost to the employee. So that would be an out-of-pocket cost for the district. However, it may save us in the long run, because we won't have those claims going in when people go to the doctor. So they just call, there's an app for it. They video into a doctor. If the doctor can help them, they do. They can even call in prescriptions, things like that. And that's at no cost to the employee. So we're looking into that just to see if it's worth it. We have to run the numbers on that. You pay per utilization. So if there's no one that uses it, you pay a certain amount per month per employee. And then if there's the higher the utilization, the more that we would pay. The other thing that they're really pushing for is more primary care engagement. So we're looking at ways to incentivize that. It may be a higher cost upfront, but eventually if doctors can catch those really serious things a little bit earlier, it will save us in the long run from those higher ticket claims that we get from more serious health issues. So we're looking at maybe even doing like a gift card if people see their PCP every year. So we're looking into that as well. Dental, we switched to self-funded last year, so we'll see how that goes at the end of the year, if we kind of got ahead on that, or what that looks like. And renewal information will come out mid-March, so we'll have more information on premiums and such after that time.
Okay. Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Now, I have just one more thing actually before Jeff
Yes.
fills this baby out. I think the banners for the choir or for the band, the banners that are back there, I think they're fantastic. I think they should be over by the athletes. I think they should be more visible. And my personal opinion, I think we should celebrate the band more. And they should have their parents' night at a boys or girls basketball game. I think those kids all work really hard. And I think it would be cool to see their parents. It would bring more people, I think, more parents to the school. Maybe they aren't always there all the time to get the feel of what the culture really is around Fall River, and what better place than at an athletic event. So I don't know if you do it maybe during a football game one season or a basketball game another year, or what that looks like, but I think those are two things that would be cool.
Thank you for all those ideas, yeah.
So, yeah. Senior banners, maybe senior banners, I think it'd just be great, so.
There wasn't much room. But
No, I know, I kind of wish there was like a light that was shining on them, because you really can't see them from the stands.
Yeah.
You can't see them very well.
Yeah, I know that when after I put them up, they did look pretty far away, but yeah.
Or there was like a line that went across the front of the stage where when you opened up the up the stage where you could pull on a line and they would all just come to the front or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion. Oh my. So, that's it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, with that then, I think we need to take a motion to adjourn to closed session.
I'll make a motion to adjourn to closed session.
Second.
We have a motion by Nate, second by Derek. All those in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
All those opposed.
We take a 2 minute.
Yep.